Hello. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something that's a little controversial. It's something a lot of people just kind of pretend isn't there and don't want to talk about. They take the path of least resistance because to mention it causes such anger and hostility in some parties and vitriol and verbal abuse that they think, oh, I'm just going to keep my head down, fly under the radar and just pretend this problem isn't there. The reason I'm not prepared to do that anymore is because I believe it's quite literally costing dogs their lives. The problem is, the thing I'm going to talk about is positive-only training. I've talked about this in the past before, and then I kind of let it die down for a while. But I keep seeing incidences where terrible things have happened, and this is not okay. And if we keep deluding ourselves and pretending that it's not happening, we're just failing dogs. I hear all too often people saying, oh, but we shouldn't be criticising other trainers. We shouldn't criticise other trainers. We should just let people do what they want, accept that people do different things and let it go. And I agree with that to a point. There are many different trainers that train different ways to me. You never see me going on other dog trainers' posts and telling them that I think they're doing it wrong. They're entitled to do what they want. But there are some things we absolutely have to recognise are not okay. And to ignore bad behaviour and reward good behaviour is not okay. We have to stop pretending that this is working when we can see it's not. So what finally tipped me over the edge, the catalyst for this, I suppose, was a client that I started working with a couple of weeks ago. She then wrote a review of how it went. She sent me the review, and I thought I would share this with people and use this to help elucidate on why I think this is a massive, great problem that we have to address. Excuse me, I'm getting old. So she wrote, when I first contacted Rob, I was at my wit's end. My 5-year-old Yorkshire Terrier had been hit by a speeding car 5 months previously. Although we were very fortunate, her physical injuries were not severe. Psychologically, however, was a different story. She had totally regressed to the point she refused to go out at all. I'd been using a different method of training and had been doing so for over 3 years. So remember, prior to this incident, she'd been working with this trainer for over 3 years. I'd employed this mode of training to gain Mia's confidence outside with me. I was recovering from a serious illness and trying to improve her recall. So this was the main reason she contacted the owner, because the dog didn't reliably recall. And she was worried. She lives in an area where there's a field surrounded by roads, and she was worried that the dog would sometimes run out and get hit. So she appointed this trainer. Neither of which was successfully implemented. My dog ran in front of a car. She's lucky to still be alive. I was advised by my previous trainer to leave her be for a week or so. Don't try to make her go out. Something about cortisol levels needing to come down. Well, I followed that advice. The result, a totally agoraphobic dog. She refused to even go out into the front garden as she was so terrified. My vet, thank God, recommended Rob, and I'm so glad that he did. Within a couple of hours of him being here, Mia had totally relaxed. No staring out the window, eagerly awaiting something to bark at, but curled up and fast asleep. When I went and saw the owner, as I went up the stairs towards the house, the dog was already on the back of the sofa, barking its head off at me. When I went in, she continued to bark and bark and bark and bark and bark and bark. All the time I was there, she continued to do the barking. By the time I left, she wasn't barking. Eagerly awaiting something to bark about, but now curled up fast asleep. Rob spent a considerable amount of time with us. He explained that my relationship with Mia needed to change and that the walks, or rather lack of, weren't the problem. The changes needed to start in our home. Goodness me, there's just not enough paper to explain all that I learned from Rob. His calm, friendly, and very humorous personality helped tremendously. I felt so relieved to learn that I wasn't a dreadful mummy, but I'd simply been told to do things with my dog that were doomed to fail. One of the key things to be successful in dog training is the dog has to see that you have the authority to tell it what to do. Otherwise, inevitably, like us, it will make very bad choices. Parents who are very weak with their children will have children who don't do as they're told because they don't have to, and the child ends up making very bad choices. Then I bring an animal into my house, potentially capable of killing me, and I teach it, it doesn't have to do anything I say. Well, how is that going to work out? Really? This is a reason I believe why we've seen such an increase in attacks on people, aggression in dogs with other dogs, separation anxieties. All these problems that we're seeing is because we're not acting like parents. We're acting like partners or siblings. The dog believes it has the opportunity to ignore me. That's not going to end well. I also learned that her diet was all wrong, and since changing over to the food Rob recommended, I've noticed a considerable difference in Mia's behaviour, and the good bit, she loves it. So, not even 2 weeks later, I'm over Blackheath with my dog, the first time for weeks happily playing. No longer is it a battle of wills, physical strength, or bribing her with treats to drop the ball, just a simple drop. Sometimes she gets a treat and sometimes not. But she's not doing it for treats, she's doing it because I've asked her to. I would highly recommend Rob to anyone that is having problems with their dog. He understands them inside and out, and his experience and knowledge is second to none. A huge thank you to you, Rob. Mia's got her mojo back. So I went and saw this person, and as I say, the dog barked and barked and barked and barked. 2 days later, this woman texted me and said that for the first time in over 8 months now, since the accident, the dog had asked her to take it out for a walk. It had gone to the front door and indicated it wanted to go for a walk. She said, I took her out, I walked her for 25 minutes. I've not been able to do that since the accident. The next day she texted me and said, just to prove it's not a fluke, Rob, she's asked me again today. And now, 2 weeks later, she's able to take the dog over to the very field where it got run over, and she's able to throw the ball, get the dog to bring the ball back, drop the ball. She couldn't get the dog to drop the ball before. Now it's dropping the ball, she's walking it. That's 2 weeks. How was she made to spend, I don't even know how much money, for 3 years paying this other trainer who claimed that she was going to teach the dog the thing that she paid her for? But the ultimate irony, and the thing that really got my goat to the point where I thought this can't carry on, somebody's got to say something, is one of my trainers is on a forum where this trainer is also a member. And she saw just last week, this trainer put up a post asking the other people who train on the site for advice on how to teach her dog to recall. She's been making this woman pay her for 3 years to teach her dog to recall, but she's now putting up a post 3 years later, 3.5 years later, asking if somebody can help teach her dog to recall. How morally has she been stealing this woman's money? And make no mistake, that's what it is. She's stolen this money, selling this myth to this woman that I can teach your dog to recall. I can't even teach my own dog to recall. This is not a serious behavioural problem that her dog has. Just teach it to recall. She says, no, I can't do that. I can't teach my dog to recall, but I'm going to make you pay me for 3 years to teach yours. This is scandalous. This is scandalous. You might as well have shouted, stand and deliver. She just robbed the woman. It's absolutely scandalous. So my concern, I wrote down some things here just to remind me because my brain's not working so well these days. I said, if the dog had died, or God forbid, even worse, if the dog had died and maybe caused a major road accident when it ran out into the road and got hit by this car, whose fault would that have been? Certainly not the dog's. The dog hasn't been trained. Can't be the owner's. The owner hasn't been trained. No, the problem would have been the dog trainers. The dog trainer failed to train her. Do you know what she told her to do to make her dog recall? Get a clicker. Get a clicker. Click and treat it. The fundamental problem with that type of training is it doesn't tell the dog it has to. It only says, if you want a treat more than the thing you want to do, come back and you can have one. Well, in this situation, the dog said, I don't want the treat. You eat the treat. I want to run across the road. And there was nothing to stop her because no training had ever been done to say to the dog, see, when I ask you, I'm not really asking. You have to do it. And so as a result, her dog could have been killed. Should have been killed. It's a tiny Yorkie hit by a speeding car. Thank God it survived. But think of what could have happened, the carnage that could have occurred because of this woman's failure to teach her how to teach her dog when she knew she didn't know how and took money from her for 3 years. Absolutely scandalous. If the dog had died or if somebody else had died, as far as I'm concerned, it would have been down to the dog trainer. The dog trainer caused that. She should be ashamed of herself. But I get it. I get it. I get why we want to do positive only training. I absolutely understand why that is a great theory. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could just teach by ignoring bad behaviour and rewarding good behaviour? But you know why that doesn't work? It doesn't work for the same reason it doesn't work for any other species on the planet. Naming any species that has no negative consequences to any choice that it makes. There's a reason why no species does that, including us, because we know it doesn't work. Imagine saying to a criminal, okay, you've just stolen £5. If you give it back, I'll give you £10. I'll give you something you like even more. Do we think we would see a reduction in crime if we did that? Of course not. Why would we think so? So if when my dog is doing something naughty, I say to him, if you carry on doing that and then when you're ready, you stop, I'll give you a tasty treat. Why would the dog stop? He doesn't even know he's not supposed to do it. All he knows is when he stops, he gets fed. So he's kind of in a win-win situation. So anybody who's misleading you into believing that ultimately that's going to get you the dog you want, they are exactly that, misleading you. If you look at a bitch weaning her puppies, she doesn't ignore their bad behaviour and reward their good. Right, you're suckling now and I want to wean you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until you finish suckling, then I'll give you a little extra squirt for being good. And that'll wean you. No, the puppies would never stop feeding. No, watch what a mother does. She goes, chop shut. The puppies don't do what we're told, which is that if you use any sort of aversive, you'll destroy the bond between you and your dog. Your dog will never trust you again. No, what happens is they go, oh, okay. Now, what we're told is if you use punishment on a dog, it will not trust you. You'll destroy your relationship. So we can't use it. And yet what we do is we see a mother appear really ferocious to her puppy or a wolf to her cub. They don't all go off and ring dog line and go, Mum, oh, my mum's just gone for me. She really frightened me. Esther Ranson, can you come round and rescue me? No, they just stop. If that's the way it works, think logically. If animals who rear their young, who tell them to stop, they so destroyed their relationship that the animal would never trust them again, well, we wouldn't have any packs of anything, would we? All the wolf cubs would have left, all the lion cubs would have left, because their mum told them off. Think of any nature program you've ever seen where you've seen that happen. The parent punished the child and the child just never trusted the parent again. And the irony is, if it didn't work, why do dogs do it? Why do they do it? They must laugh their heads off when we go, oh no, we're only supposed to ignore your bad behaviour. They're like, what, wouldn't you just tell him off? Oh no. We have to click and treat him when he's good. They would think we'd lost our minds. So why are we trying to fix something that is clearly not broken? It doesn't make sense to me to bring a predatory animal in, capable of killing me, into the home of myself and my family and teach it has no rules. There are no lines it can't cross. There are no boundaries it shouldn't step over. To me, to do that is probably an accident waiting to happen. If I'm going to bring this animal into my home that could kill me or my child, then I at least need it to understand there are things it's not allowed to do. And this, I think, is why we're seeing dogs going into rescue younger and younger and younger. The average age of a dog going into rescue now is only 8 months old. That's terrible. And I believe that perhaps one of the biggest reasons for that is because people give up on the training that was never going to work and they put the dog in rescue. Make no mistake, positive only training on its own does not work. There's more chance of me winning Albino of the Year or becoming head of the BMP than there is of that working. We have to let it go, screw it up, throw it in the bin. I get why people like it. And there's lots of science out there that says that it works. But the problem is most of these papers I read are also written by people who themselves don't train dogs. They're going with science. Well, science says if I reward a behaviour, that behaviour is more likely to repeat. So that's all we should be doing. But they're only using half the science. There is another half to that science, which is just as scientific, that says a punisher is likely to cause a behaviour to decrease. So surely you don't have to be Einstein to work out what I should probably use is both of those things. We've stopped punishing our children. Look how well that's working out. I'm old enough to remember a time when children didn't self-harm, take drugs, beat up other children, assault police officers, assault teachers, because we were too scared. We grew up knowing there was a consequence of that, and that consequence helped us to make better choices. And if that consequence didn't work, there was an increased one to make sure that we made the good choices. And we're still doing it now, which is why we have a penal system. We don't reward criminals for bad behaviour, we punish them. Something I've talked about a lot in the past is I know a number of positive only reward-based, or not reward-based, because I consider myself a reward-based trainer, reward-only dog trainers. Why don't I know a single one who's got what I would consider, even on a basic level, to be a well-behaved dog that reliably comes back, reliably drops stuff when it's told, doesn't show any aggression towards any other animals? I don't know a single one that has what I would consider, even on a basic pet training level, to be a well-behaved dog. And the reason is because the dog knows it can always choose to ignore them. So I hear lots of them saying, well, he's still a work in progress. He's much better than he was, but we're still working on. And you find they've been doing that for 3 or 4 years. They're still calling him a rescue dog because that explains why, or excuses why they haven't fixed him. But they're going to make you pay them to fix yours. Why don't we see videos being put up on their websites? Look on if you've got a positive only trainer, look on their website and see how many videos there are of them with dogs that were failures that became successes, that was aggressive but is trustworthy, that had a problem and that problem has gone away. And if you're working with a positive only trainer, rather than just them keep telling you it's a marathon, not a sprint, look back and go, okay, over the time I've been working with you, how many of those issues have now gone? They're not there anymore. You'll probably be disappointed. And if you're a positively only trainer, what I would love you to do is firstly, recognize that I can virtually guarantee you're not positive only. You'll be using head collars. Dogs don't like those. The dog would say that's punishing. Harnesses, the dogs don't like those. They would call it punishing. Timeouts, they're punishing. All those sort of things that we kid ourselves are not, really are. And the key is, don't worry about the science. Ask the dog how he feels when you used it. And the dog will tell you he felt punished. Negative reinforcement. Well, I'm going to take away the thing that you want because you didn't do what I want. How many dogs do you think are going to go, oh, I'm really happy about that. That wasn't punishing. It was positive. No, they're going to say, I didn't like that. That was punishment. When I did the wrong thing, you took away the thing I wanted. Don't kid yourself that you're using negative reinforcement. You're punishing the dog. You're just arguing semantics. It's punishing to the dog. He wants that thing and you took it away. Don't kid yourself that you're being positive. But certainly, look back at your own dog and think, how well behaved is my dog? Something I would challenge all positive only trainers to do. And it's something I did many years ago, and it was a real eye-opener for me. Many years ago, I'm going back to the early 90s, I got out my register and I worked my way through it, and I looked at every trainer, every owner who'd been to my classes, and I put a tick against all of the ones that I believed at the end probably had the dog that they wanted, that he now had fixed all of those issues that they came to me for. And you know what? I was horrified. I was horrified by how low that number actually was. And it was when I first started to readdress the way I was training people and dogs so that I would be much more successful. But it was a real shock for me because up until that point when I really stopped and looked at it, I thought it was pretty good. And I suspect most of the positive only trainers, if you do that exercise, you get your register out or your list of cases and you look back through them and go, okay, how many of the people that contacted me with a problem, when I stopped having dialogue with them, chances are they'd fixed all of those issues. Those issues have gone. You'll probably be horrified too. And what you'll find is most of them still have the same problems that they had when they came to you. This is why positive only trainers will always tell you, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. They're trying to prepare you for the fact they're probably not going to be very successful. The trouble is, at the moment, as it stands, there is no formal recognized quality standard for dog trainers. Anyone could do it. Behaviourists, anyone could do it. Anyone watching this video could set themselves up as a dog behaviourist. Doesn't mean they're any good. And so until we address that, we're going to continue to have this problem. You can do a weekend course now that will give you a diploma in canine behaviour. And all they want is something they can stick on their website and go, I've got a diploma. It's not worth the paper it's written on. So don't assume that just because you get somebody who says they're qualified, that qualification is of any value. Also, don't confuse management with training. You get lots of clients who say, my dog does this, he does this, he does this, and I'd like you to teach me how to stop him from doing that. And all the client gets is a program of management. There is a place for management, and I'm not suggesting that there isn't. But if you say, right, well, he's aggressive towards other dogs, just turn and go the other way. Whenever a dog is coming towards you, go the other way. Keep him below threshold. Well, there's one coming the other way. Okay, cross the road and go around that way. Just avoid them. Yeah, he's aggressive towards people that come into the house. Okay, well, you'll have to shut him away every time people come around the house. He's always scavenging, picking stuff off put a muzzle on him. This is not dog training, just so as we're clear. That's not dog training. That's management and avoidance to avoid dog training. But that's not what the client paid you for. They could figure that out themselves. You think they don't know if they put a muzzle on their dog, he can't scavenge? You think they know if he's aggressive towards people coming in the house, they could put him in another room? That's not what they're paying you for. They want you to train them how to fix it. And if you can't fix it, that's absolutely fine. But what you have to do is tell them that. I can give you a system of management. It's probably not worth very much money, so I'm going to charge you a lot less. But if you want to know how to fix it, you need to go to somebody else. No, what we do is we charge them huge amounts of money when in the back of our minds, we know this is not going to actually give them what they want, which is the problem fixed. So in summation, I would urge every positive-only trainer to kind of do the thing that I had to do, which was a very bitter pill at the time, but it made me a much better trainer. And that is to go back through your records and look and see, are you really doing what people are paying you for? Am I really giving people what they want? And some of you, I know, if you were brave enough to do it, would find that for years, some of you for decades, have failed spectacularly in that. You've never given them what they're paying for. And for that, you really should step up and look at further training. That's what I would advise.